welcome to all in this English online classes. Now, in earlier video, I have covered the first part of class 10th English first flight book, chapter 3, two stories about flying. Now, here, that story is about a seagull who was unable to fly because of fear, but finally he was succeeded and he reached his aim. Okay. Now in second part, that is about the Black Aeroplane, written by the writer Frederick Forsyth. Here in this story, there was a pilot who was flying an aeroplane and he wanted to return back to his home, England, and to be with his family and to have breakfast. He was flying from France, but as he started his journey, he stuck in a storm and was unable to come out of that storm. But the mysterious things happened with him. And what is that mysterious thing? Suddenly, an black aeroplane arrived there, and the pilot sitting in that black aeroplane helped him to come out of that storm, and in this way, the pilot safely reached at his home. But the pilot couldn't know about that mysterious black aeroplane or about that pilot who helped him, because after helping, that aeroplane disappeared and the narrator, the pilot, was unable to see him. Okay, so that is the mystery about this story. Let us discuss about the main characters. The main characters, the first character is the narrator himself. He was pilot. And the second character, the mystery pilot in the black aeroplane. Okay, and the third character is the lady at the control room to whom with he or trying to contact with when he stuck in a storm. Okay. Now let's see the setting of the story. The story is set in a plane flying over France. Flying over France means the narrator, the pilot, was flying over the France to reach England. Okay. Now let us see the theme. The stories explore themes of mystery and thrills. Means this story is full of thrills and mystery. What about the thrills? Thrills is that when he was stuck in a storm, the condition became very worse and he became afraid, but at that moment he didn't lose his hope. And what about the mystery? The mystery is that when he was stuck in a storm, at that time a pilot sitting in black aeroplane reached there to help him, but after some time, after helping him, the pilot with the aeroplane disappeared. That was the mystery. Okay. Now here you can see the pilot was flying from France to England. Okay. England was his native place. Now you can see the message. Here the message is given: we should not lose our hope in trouble. Okay. This story motivates us to not lose our hope in a trouble, in a problem, or in a difficult situation. We should fight against it so that we can achieve our aim. Okay. Now let us discuss about the events of this story. The main events about this. Now let's see about the event of the story. Okay. The first, here the writer was flying to England from France in an aeroplane, but he was caught in a huge storm. Okay, he was caught in a huge storm next is that suddenly when the pilot was stuck in huge black cloud, suddenly he saw a black aeroplane arrive there, and inside a pilot was sitting. He was flying that aeroplane. That pilot directed him to follow him, and the narrator did the same. He followed that black aeroplane, and by following, he safely reached near the control room. Okay. Now you can see the resolution of this story. And what is the resolution of this story? That is, when he reached at the control room, there a lady was sitting. The lady was in a control room, and he asked to that lady about that aeroplane which helped him in that huge black cloud. What is the response of that lady? That lady said that there were no other aeroplane flying that day. Means this is the story, mystery about that story, that there were no other aeroplane flying. So, which is that aeroplane which helped that narrator to come out of that danger? Okay, so let us find out in this story. I will read this chapter and will explain this chapter line wise. I hope you will understand it and you will enjoy this story. And after reading this story, definitely you become very happy, because this story motivates you to never lose hope in a difficult condition. Okay. Okay, now let us start the explanation of this chapter, The Black Aeroplane by Frederick Forsyth. But before this, I would like to suggest you to keep your book in front of you so that you can easily understand it. Okay, now I am going to read this chapter line wise, and after that I will explain it. You must listen it carefully. The moon coming up in the east behind me, and stars were shining in the clear sky above me. There was not a cloud in the sky. I was happy to be alone high up above the sleeping countryside. I was flying my old Dakota aeroplane over France. Back to England, I was dreaming of my holiday and looking forward to being with my family. I looked at my watch, 1:30 in the morning. Now here I is here, narrator of the story, and the narrator is Frederick Forsyth, and he is pilot, and he was flying an aeroplane towards his destination, that is England. Okay, now see the explanation. It was night when the sky was clear and the stars could be seen twinkling. The pilot felt peace in being above a country that had fallen asleep while he was flying over France to England. It was 1:30 in the morning, and he was fantasizing about holidaying with his family. I should call Paris control soon, I thought. As I looked down past the nose of the aeroplane, I saw the lights of a big city in front of me. I switched on the radio and said, Paris control, Dakota DS-088 here. Can you hear me? I am on my way to England. Over. The voice from the radio answered me immediately. DS-088, I can hear you. You ought to turn 12 degrees west now, DS. Okay, now see the explanation. When the aeroplane was in France, the pilot thought of informing the Paris control personnel about its presence and for instruction. At that time, lights from the Paris city were blaring at him. He informed the control agency, to which they replied with further instruction on direction. The control room at Paris instructed him to turn 12 degrees towards the west. Okay, means here the Paris control instructed him to turn towards 12 degree towards the west. Okay, and this one Dakota DS-088 is the name of that plane which the pilot was flying. Okay, now see, I checked the map and the compass, switched over to my second and last fuel tank, and turned the Dakota 12 degrees west towards England. I will be in time for breakfast. I thought, a good big English breakfast. Everything was going well. It was an easy flight. Means at that moment the pilot was relieved. Okay. After receiving the instruction, the pilot geared up and followed them while putting the last fuel tank into operation. All this time he was dreaming about his time with his family, and then he started thinking about having a satisfactory breakfast at the destination point. He was calm as everything was going as planned. He was fully relieved because everything was going smoothly. Now he hoped that soon he will reach his native place, his home. Okay. Paris was about 150 kilometers behind me when I saw the clouds. Storm clouds. They were huge. They looked like black mountains standing in front of me across the sky. I knew I could not fly up and over them, and I did not have enough fuel to fly around them to the north or south. I ought to go back to Paris, I thought, but I wanted to get home. I wanted that breakfast. I will take the risk, I thought, and flew that old Dakota straight into the storm. Now, see what happened? The plane had crossed Paris when he started seeing clouds in the sky. The presence of cloud made it unsafe to travel by air because there was chances of a storm. They were so huge and dark that the pilot compared them with black mountains. He knew he couldn't pass them, as it was impossible to go above them or escape them with the amount of fuel that was left in the last tank. The right decision would have been to fly back to Paris safely. But the pilot's decision making was clouded by his wish to meet his family. He so desperately wanted to be with his family and have that English breakfast he had been dreaming of all that day, that he took the risk of not going back, and thus he headed the plane right into the storm. At that moment he had taken the risk. He didn't lose his hope. He didn't return back. He headed the plane right into the storm. Okay, because his mind was full of a dream with his family, and he wanted to fulfill his dream. That's why he didn't return back. He took the risk and headed towards his direction. Okay, now see the next para. Inside the clouds, everything was suddenly black. It was impossible to see anything outside the aeroplane. The old aeroplane jumped and twisted in the air. I looked at the compass. I couldn't believe my eyes. The compass was turning round and round and round. It was dead. It would not work. The other instruments were suddenly dead too. I tried the radio. Now see the explanation. What happened then? It was so dark because of the storm that nothing was visible outside the plane. Everything was dark. He started losing control of the aeroplane. The compass and the other instrument had also stopped working because of the bad weather. He became helpless. At that time, he lost his faith little bit, but only for that moment. Okay. Now see what happened uh, after that. Okay. Now next, see the next para. Paris control. Can you hear me? There was no answer. The radio was dead too. I had no radio, no compass, and I could not see where I was. I was lost in the storm. Then, in the black clouds quite near me, I saw another aeroplane. It had no lights on its wings, but I could see it flying next to me through the storm. I could see the pilot's face turn towards me. I was very glad to see another person. He lifted one hand and waved. Follow me, he was saying. Follow me, he knew that I am lost. I thought he is trying to help me. Now listen the explanation. He tried calling the Paris Control Agency, who had helped him earlier, who had given him direction to turn the right direction, but at that time he tried to call Paris Control Agency but couldn't connect because of weather. His instrument stopped working. In the midst of nowhere, when everything failed, he saw a ray of hope when he saw another aeroplane. He felt relieved when he saw another pilot face and willingness to help him escape the storm. He thought to himself that the other pilot is very kind, as he knew that they were lost and was trying to help him. Now he started believing on that pilot, and he hoped that that pilot will help him to come out of that storm. Okay. Now see the next. He turned his aeroplane slowly to the north in front of my Dakota so that it would be easier for me to follow him. I was very happy to go behind the strange aeroplane like an obedient child. After half an hour, the strange black aeroplane was still there in front of me in the clouds. Now there was only enough fuel in the old Dakota's last tank to fly for 5 or 10 minutes more. I was starting to feel frightened again. Now see what happened. The other pilot took his plane ahead of the lost aeroplane to make it easier for them to follow, while the other followed him like an obedient child. He was also panicking because there was very less amount of fuel left. It was only then that he started coming out of the storm and he could see the runway to land his plane safely. When he turned to thank the other pilot, he realized that the plane that helped him had disappeared as soon as he came out of the storm. Means at that time the helping pilot was not visible there. He fully disappeared from that sight. And this was the mystery of this story. Okay. Now see the next para. But then he started go down and I followed through the storm. Suddenly I came out of the okay. Now see the next para. I landed and was not sorry to walk away from the old Dakota near the control tower. I went and asked the women in the control center where I was and who the other pilot was. I wanted to say thank you. She looked at me very strangely and then laughed. Another aeroplane up there in this storm? No. Other aeroplanes were flying tonight. Yours was the only one I could see on the radar. So, who helped me to arrive there safely without a compass or a radio and without any more fuel in my tanks? Who was the pilot on the strange black aeroplane flying in the storm without lights? Now, here the writer was in dismay. But before this, let us understand the meaning of radar. It is a system for detecting the presence, direction, distance, and speed of aircraft, ships, and other objects by sending out pulses of radio waves which are reflected off the object back to the source. Okay, and strangely means in a strange manner. Okay, now see what happened. The author didn't know where he had landed, but was not afraid of leaving his plane unattended. He headed straight into the control room to ask about the other pilot. To his utmost surprise, the lady informed him that there was no other plane in the sky except his because of bad weather. He is left astonished with a lot of question unanswered in his mind. Means there was lots of question in his mind which couldn't be answered. Why? Because the lady who was sitting in control room clarified him that day only his plane was flying. No other plane was flying in that cloud in that area. Okay, so listening this all things, the narrator became astonished, and there were lots of questions that is left unanswered in his mind. Okay, so this was the mystery about this story. The writer safely reached at his destination, but still he didn't know about the helping aeroplane, who was that person or from where that aeroplane arrived at that certain moment to help him out. Okay, that this means that's why it is said. You can see here the message that gives this story is never lose hope in a difficult condition. Instead, keep your mind calm and cool and think in positive way. There is always a silver lining in every cloud. Every cloud has a silver lining. That means that you should never feel hopeless, because difficult times always lead to better days. So, I hope this story, definitely you will understand this story, and this story is going to motivate you to never lose hope. And after reading this story, after understanding this story, I hope you will make notes on it. Okay, till then, thank you so much. Goodbye.